Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Findmypast from home. It's time for Friday's Live. I hope you've all had a really nice week. I know for those of us on the sort of this side of the world where I'm at the moment, it's getting colder, it's getting darker, but it's also getting cozier. It's family history season, as I sometimes like to call it. My name is Ellie. I'm Senior Community Executive for Findmypast. I am one of 4 Fridays Live hosts because we do Fridays Live here at Findmypast every single week. It's a chance for us all to connect, for us to wind down after a long week, and also to go through the new records that Findmypast has brought online this week, because we do have new records on Findmypast every single week, which is super, super exciting. And I always like to say, and if you've joined us a couple of times, I will sound like a broken record, but every week with Findmypast, you have a chance to discover a new ancestor or a new story or add somebody new to your family tree. And I just think that's really, really special and really exciting, actually. Family history keeps us all on our toes, I like to think. I have my drink of choice today, an espresso with a little caramel in it, because I need that little bit of sweetness in my coffee. I can't drink it without. It's already gone cold, which is fantastic. Please do say hello in the comments. Tell me how your week is going. Tell me if you found anything new. In terms of what we're going to do today, we are going to look at the new records. We are going to look at new newspapers. We are going to do a little tutorial. I thought it would be a really good chance to go back to the 1921 census and go over some search techniques, given that the 1921 census is now included in Findmypast premium subscription. Yay! Hopefully the news you guys were all waiting for is now included in a subscription. Of course, you can still pay using the micropayments if you'd prefer. So if you're only going to be needing the 1921 census for a handful of records, that might be a better option for you. But if you need slightly more unlimited access, you can use the new subscription, which is super exciting. And yes, of course, you can also access it for free in person from one of 3 regional hubs. So you can still go and look at those. And when I say one of 3, you can choose to go to one of 3. You could all, you could go to all 3 of them if you really wanted to, but why you would, I don't know. So yes, that's what we're going to do today. We're also going to have a look at some records we already have on Findmypast that I think are really, really good. And in terms of what I've picked for you this week, I like to think we sometimes talk about gateway ancestors, right? So if you are wanting to find a connection to royalty or nobility, for example, or like a really, really famous family, sometimes all you need is that gateway ancestor. And then sometimes that just opens up so many doors for everything else. This is what I sort of like to think this week's record set is. It's a gateway record set. On its own, it might not be everything that you need, but it could be the stepping stone into finding some really cracking stories. So stay with me and we will do that a little bit later on. Now, let's welcome some of you in the comments here today. Who have we got? We've got Gina with us. Hello. Hello. Yes, we do have Jessie with us as well. Say hi to our Jessie. We've got Matt. We've got Gillian. We've got Bob. It's a above seasonal average warm day on Vancouver Island today. We need rain. I'm praying for some rain to be sent your way. You can have some of ours if you like. Happy to send some of that your way. I think Roz would probably say the same. I really want to come and visit Massachusetts. Like it's on my list of places to go visit. I just think it would be really lovely. We've got Andreas joining us from Stoke-on-Trent. We've got Linda. Hello. I've got Sally from a wintry Whitney near Oxford. Still feeling weak after COVID, so glad to sit down and rest up. Sadly, the chocolate has already gone. We will have to send you some more chocolate. Yes, I hope you do all have your drink of choice as well. Maybe a little snack of some kind. I am a big believer in treating yourself a little bit at the end of the week. Just whatever floats your boat, whether it's a little tipple of wine or whether it's like a hot chocolate with like extra marshmallows on, whatever floats your boat. I think you deserve it. I think Fridays are a good way to a good time to step back and go, do you know what? I made it through the week. I did what I wanted to do, or maybe I didn't, but it doesn't matter. I think I deserve a wee reward. That is my philosophy in life. We've got Shirley joining us from Cambridgeshire. Hello, nice to see you. David, I'm so pleased to hear it. Fantastic. Ian from Ruthin in North Wales. I'm close to there today, actually. You'll notice my background is different. In fact, where so I'm at my mother's house at the moment, and where she lives along the main road, I can see the school bus from my old school pulling up, dropping the kids off. And that's the bus that used to take me to school. It's just very bizarre. It's very strange, and I'm feeling older by the day, I'll tell you. Especially because actually I've been speaking to Jessie about this all week. I pulled something in my shoulder. My birthday was only like 3 weeks ago, and already it's just, yeah. Anywho, that's a aside. We're moving on. Loads of you still here. This is great. I'm not, you're not going away with me rambling. That's what I'm trying to say. Hub is at the doctor's, so I'm watching on my phone. So neat, I can still watch. Yay, it's always good. Yes, Linda, we've actually reported that, and I think we're going to get it switched off because it shouldn't be doing that, and I apologize. The pop-up should not be appearing more than once after you close it. Yes, they're looking at that right now, in fact. Apologies for that, everybody. Hello, lovely to see you. Lots of you here. This is fantastic. Okay, right. So I think we should probably jump straight in, actually. I'm just... Christine joining us from France, can't stay long. I still wish I was in France, even though you say it's a miserable day. I would just much rather be in France. I love France a lot. Okie dokie. Right, I think we should probably get cracking then. I'm still catching up with these comments. Yes, question of the week. Thank you, Sally. Yes, I knew I was forgetting something. Question of the week is, what do you remember discovering or achieving in your first few weeks with Findmypast? It can be something small, it can be something big, it could be something in between, whatever you remember, because I know a lot of you have, you've been with us for a while, and you guys are our heart, so to speak. So if you can think back as to whether you came on and you went on to Findmypast and you knew you wanted to prove something, like you knew that your grandfather worked for X company or something, you either proved or disproved that in your first couple of weeks, or whether you simply just managed to find a great grandparent or find an extra cousin, or you were able to order a certificate, for example. This is the sort of stuff I want to know, like there's nothing too big, nothing too small. I'm just really curious as to what you guys managed to do in your first few weeks. And even if you're hearing me say this and you're thinking, oh, well, there's nothing really, that's okay too. I want to hear that too. This is what I want to hear today. Okay. Excuse me. Okie doke. Oh, this is a good one, Cheryl. Found when my mum was living as a nanny in the 1939 register. Yay, it's so good. 1939 register is great. It doesn't get enough love, in my opinion. Okay, right, let's get rid of the banner for now, and we will hop into... Oh, it never pulls through the right fonts, which is upsetting, because I actually had lovely fonts on this. Okay, what's new this week? So we are looking at Navy and Marines Service Pension Records. Now, this is the name of the record set, but what we've added into it is sort of a subset, and these are wills, and we've added around 20,000 wills into this record set. So it's Royal Navy and Royal Marine Service and Pensions records from 1704 to 1919. They're transcript only. However, what you absolutely must do is, if you find one that you want to go and have a look at, there's a link on the transcription. Click the transcript, click the link, you'll be taken through to the National Archives website. Sign into your account. So if you don't have one, just create one. It's free to do. And then you can buy a copy of the will for free. If you don't sign into your account, you have to pay £3.50. I don't know why you wouldn't just sign in and for free and then get the will for free. But that's totally your call. So yeah, that's how you go and see an original. There's loads more detail on there. It's really, really fantastic, and they're really, really lovely. The new records cover the years 1786 to 1822, so they're a little bit earlier. And one of the wills that featured this week on the blog was for a chap called Isaac Chant, and he was a seaman on HMS Victory and actually fought at the Battle of Trafalgar, and it's actually the anniversary of this next week. We've also got British West Indies Regiment servicemen for 1915 to 1919. This is brand new, and it covers around 17,000 service records, and these are exclusive to Findmypast. It includes records for privates and non-commissioned officers. So from the reading I did, because I was really intrigued by this, because there were apparently about 15,000 men in this regiment and about 400 officers. And I believe they were mostly volunteers. This particular record set is a work in progress, and there's hopefully going to be more coming. It's an attempt to identify all those who served in the British West Indies Regiment in the First World War, and it's actually compiled and collated from various different sources. We've also added more records, around 10,000 new records, into the Dorset memorial inscriptions. This covers the cemetery of Poole in Dorset. Be sure to check the extra notes as well on the transcript. That can list things like what's written on the dedication. So it might give an occupation, it might give a spouse's name, it might give a child's name, for example. That's definitely worth doing as well. So it wouldn't be me looking at some new records without actually going in and exploring them a little bit. So I saw that Isaac Chant had been featured on the blog, and I had to go and find out more about him because you guys know him by now. That's just who I am. So this is actually a copy of his will from 1805, and I didn't really know much more about him. I knew his name was Isaac Chant. I knew he was a seaman, and I can see from the original that his wife at this point was called Susanna. That's it. That's all I found. But it's so easy to go and find more information. I fell down such a rabbit hole with this. So he actually appears on a muster roll for HMS Victory in 1805, same year as the will. And we learn from that muster roll that he was born in around 1765 in London, and he enlisted on the 11th of May, 1803. He actually appears in several Royal Navy pension service records in around 1815. And then there's a gap, and then he appears for more in 1836 and 1837. I think I did have some images of these. Yes, there we go. That's one of them there. So there we go. And so one of these later ones, which I think was for about 1837 or something like that, it told me that his wife at this point was called Elizabeth. The last ship that he served on was the HMS Ocean, I think, and he was about 80 when this particular record was taken. It's like a pension record. And apparently he lived near the Tower of London. Like, that's what his address gets recorded as, like near the Tower of London. I also get 2 dates that he was given clothing support, which was the 21st of April and the 25th of August in 1837. And the last record he appears on is in 1840. But this wasn't it. I actually found quite a bit more. And sometimes with family history, the further back you go, the less information is available. That's sometimes just the nature of the beast, right? But I actually found him in our London waterman records, in a binding record from 1775. He was bound to a chap called Emmanuel Robinson, and he was freed in 1782. He's also in our London Lives record set. This is from 1800. It tells me that he was admitted to St Thomas's Hospital, and his address is given as 8 St Catherine's near the Tower of London. I found a marriage record for him to Elizabeth Callow in 1817, and I learned that he died in Greenwich Hospital aged 82 in March 1840. And I did find his burial record in the nonconformist records, which you can see on the right hand side there. Utterly fascinating. I could have gone on much longer than that, but this is my problem. I always want to carry on researching these people that I bring to these sessions, to show you the power of these records and exactly what you can find in them, just from one utterly random example. Let's have a look at the British West Indies Regiment servicemen records then. So this is just an image I pulled from the newspapers just to illustrate what I'm going to be talking about. So this was some of the men that were signing up in 1916, and there's a Lord Mayor there as well. I can't remember which Lord Mayor it is. So the example on the blog that was given for this record set is that of Joseph Chamberlain Hope. And the record tells us that he was a Barbados petitioner. Now, what that means is he was one of 12 of the regiment who protested their pay increases. Protested because their pay increases, those who served with the regiment, were being withheld in 1918. So everybody else, all these other regiments, they got pay increases. This regiment didn't, on account of their race, which was It's baffling. So they didn't get pay increases. So people like Joseph Chamberlain, Hope, and 11 other people protested this. This was actually a really tricky little period. It was reasonably quite contained, this event, but there was a little bit of violence, and the Worcestershire Regiment were sent in to keep the peace. A black NCO was killed. There was another chap. There were people who ended up in prison for various sentences. Somebody ended up being sent away for like 20 years. 60 men were tried for mutiny, and one man received he was executed by firing squad because they just wanted fair pay. But Joseph actually received a Distinguished Conduct Medal for his service during the First World War. And yeah, I thought this was really fascinating. Again, the history of this regiment, I could have read for a lot longer about this than I did. And I think it's something I want to go and read up a little bit more about. Again, utterly fascinating. In terms of newspapers this week, really exciting for those of you with Suffolk family trees. So we've got 2 new titles from Suffolk, the Bury and Suffolk Standard and the Bury and Suffolk Herald. Definitely go and check those out. I believe they were more conservative in style and in their views, but still, you know, you're going to find hopefully your ancestors in and around there in the newspapers. So definitely go check those out. We've also added the Manchester Metro News and also the Northfleet and Swanscombe Standard. There's a whole host of others that have been updated, including the Building News, which we added last week. And of course, Liam got very excited about the Building News last week. I don't have a story about a cat today, I'm afraid. I can't top that. I'm really sorry if you came here just for the cat content, but sorry, I didn't find that. But yes, as I said, the Building News has been updated. I think it's been updated for 1890 to 91. So there's a couple more years added there. So if there are any house historians out there or people like Liam who just really, really love looking at, you know, building plans and things like that in newspapers and, you know, trying to find cats, you know, this is your week, apparently. It's your week again because you had pages added last week as well. I know, sorry, Jessie, I'm really sorry. Oh, Jessie, come back. Jessie, come back. Have we lost her? Oh, well, never mind. Her loss. Okay, cool. So those are the new records for this week. Yes, lots there, which is really good. Oh no, spoiler. That was the end of my slides. Okay, so let's do question of the week. Sorry, I'll just pop it on screen again. And as I said with this question of the week, it doesn't have to be like some mind-blowing discovery. Like that's not necessarily, I mean, if you have, that's brilliant. But I just want to hit everything: the big, the small, the successful, the not successful. This is all really good stuff for us at Findmypast. It helps us improve the experience for anybody new who's coming in. So thanks, Leah. Sorry, I just started laughing and nobody knew I was laughing, but that's why I'm laughing. Yeah, okay. Sorry, moving on. We're talking about question of the week. So I want to know what you either discovered or achieved, big or small, during your first few weeks at Findmypast, or even your first month, if you want to think of it like that. Who did you add to your tree? Who new did you discover? Did you just confirm what you already knew, for example? Were you able to order this certificate and that certificate? This is the kind of stuff I want to hear about this week. Okie doke. So, oh, Liam says, I can't stay long, but you're still here. Very busy at the moment. Who saw the 1921 census be included in the subscription coming? Yes, you did sort of tease that last week, didn't you, Liam? You were turning into me a little bit. Normally, I'm the one that teases everything. I don't know why I'm reaching back for this. It's cold, but I mean, it'll still give me the caffeine, right? I mean, it's basically like an iced coffee without the ice. Oh, well. That is a really good question, Karen. I think it's a decision you need to make for yourself. But if you want some advice, maybe drop our customer support team a quick email. They will be able to talk through options with you. But absolutely have a think about it, because yeah, all of that stuff. Okay, Linda says, bit of excitement with the 1921 as it appears my great grandfather remarried and my nan never mentioned it and my mum didn't know. Oh. Oh, it's those sorts of discoveries where you sort of have to break them to family members as well. I had to do that a little bit with my husband's, my mother-in-law. Um, she said, "Oh, I um, I'm pretty sure my grandparents weren't actually married, and I went away and I couldn't find a marriage for them. And then I found her grandfather actually married another woman, and he never actually divorced her before having children and living with her grandmother. So that was a difficult one to break as well. But she already had an inkling, so it wasn't so bad. Okay, right. What questions have we got here? Okay. Sorry, I really want to read the 1921 questions, but maybe I'll come back to those. Okay. Yes, we've done Cheryl's already. Gina says, I remember searching records and a lady's name kept cropping up. Finally found out that this lady was my great grandmother. Oh, I love that. I love that because obviously you've then gone away and you've done a bit of extra research and you put the pieces together, and then that must have been quite a penny drop moment when you thought, hold on, I've been looking at that name for days or weeks or whatever, and then suddenly the pieces all fit. That must have been really satisfying. Matt says, I didn't know my great grandparents on my father's side. Very big family story and also very sad. This is the thing with family history, and we talk about this a lot on Findmypast from Home, is that it's important to go and find these stories, but not every story is going to be a happy read. It's not going to have a happy ending. And this is where family history just isn't for everybody either. Not everybody wants to go and find sad stories, I suppose. Yeah, each to their own, I think. But yeah, I'm sorry that you came across a story that was sad, Matt. That's a shame. Karen says, I found my great grandfather had a second wife. You have Hertfordshire parish records. Yes. Kim says, I found several newspaper articles about my fourth great grandmother being hanged in 1815. Gosh, that was a sobering find. Yes. I'd like some happy stuff as well, please. Please. I need cheering up. Okay, what else have we got? Christine says, I found my dad living away from his parents' home. He was 11, so he must have been evacuated. Did you know beforehand that he was evacuated? Had he ever spoken about it to you at all? Was there any evidence of it? Like, did he ever send letters home or anything like that? I'm really keen to know more because I don't think any of my relatives were evacuated, actually. I know that my hubby's grandfather he was evacuated from, was it London to Wales, I think, twice. But yeah, it must be quite strange if you didn't know that had happened. And again, this is why the 1939 register is so good, because you can find where these people were living and who they were living with just as war broke out. Anya says, I went through the National Archives and found that there was a record for my 5 times great grandfather's military record in the 42nd Foot Regiment of Foot, yes, during the Napoleonic War. Yes, I never found cool things like this. Yeah, some of these discoveries that, I mean, don't get me wrong, that they're not all happy and go lucky and etc., but they're good discoveries. Like I'm really impressed, you guys. I discovered my great grandfather and mother living on the Isle of Wight. My great grandfather was killed in World War I in France and was able to find out where he was buried, and then the pictures of the graveyard. I was able to show my dad, who was amazed. Oh, imagine that as one of your first things that you do on Findmypast as well. And I think that's sometimes what a lot of people come to family history websites for in the beginning, right? It's trying to put answers to these unsolved stories, or I think particularly remembrance and military ancestors. There's a real emotional tug there, and finding out what happened to them. I don't know whether any of you have been listening to some of the regional BBC news stations today, but we've had, Jenny Bond, royal correspondent, or previous royal correspondent, she's been going on some radio stations today and talking about some research we've done for her into her family history. And we found out that she already knew that her grandmother maternal grandmother was one of 13 children, and she ended up being fostered out to various cousins. And we discovered that, in fact, it was Jen who discovered this, that two of her grandmother's brothers died during the First World War, and that they are buried in France. And Jenny Bond didn't know this, and now she really, really wants to go and visit their graves. And I think that's a really poignant thing. That's a really lovely thing to do. I'm almost crying just thinking about it. I don't really have that. I'm very lucky in that sense. I don't believe I lost any close relatives during the First or Second World War. But yeah, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. Okay. Ellen says, I found a First World War death record for a Mentesi cousin. Never knew. So sad. Oh, good. Yes, absolutely. Go and check these. Yes, please do. Christine, are there any records for the Merchant Navy? I've not found any. So we've got two very good record collections for the Merchant Navy, and I do believe the ones that released this week are Royal Navy and Royal Marines. But Jessie, if you could pop the links to the two different Merchant Navy record sets in the description for Christine, please. One of them in particular is one of my favorite record sets ever, and I talk about it all the time because it has photographs, and I love photographs. Like, you can just see your ancestors staring back at you. Like, that's so cool. That's so cool. Okay, Claire says, I cannot remember exactly, but it may have been the ship list for Mum and her sibling, Nana and Grandad, who sailed from England to Australia. Seeing any image of a record is exciting. Oh, and that's such a close bit of history for you as well, like seeing that passenger list. I love that. I love that. Mark found one of my forefathers tried and imprisoned in 1823, reprieved from deportation to Australia, spent 5 years on a prison hulk at the age of 63. He was finally released for good behaviour by none other than Sir Robert Peel. You found that in your first few weeks? Wow. I love that. I'm actually tearing up just thinking of that one as well, because, 63 on a prison hulk. Thank goodness he survived, because that must have been awful, actually awful. And then released by Robert Peel. That's really cool, Mark. I'm a big fan of that. Not that I have favourites. I want to say I don't have favourites with your discoveries. They're all important. They're all fantastic. Eileen says, I discovered that my maternal grandparents did not get married until shortly before their second child was born. They went on to have 4 more children, the youngest of whom was my dad, born in 1928. This was not common knowledge. I shouldn't laugh. I'm not actually laughing. Some family history discoveries are a bit of a shock. Some of them are a bit of a sort of a punch to the gut sort of thing. And I feel like this was probably one of those for you. Yeah, honestly, you guys, I'm never disappointed when we do a question of the week like this, and I'm asking you to share like a particular kind of discovery. I am never ever disappointed. You guys always come out on top. Okay. I'm still going. What else have we got? Okay. Rita says, I was able to determine where my family lived and moved in Philadelphia because of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia Catholic records. Yay! I also quickly learned some basic Latin terms because the records were in Latin. I also found some of my aunts and uncles' marriage information because the priest made notations in the margins of the records. I love it when that happens. I love it when you come across one record for something and some do-gooder who wrote the record has added some extra detail, and that just opens up even more doors for you. I love it when that happens. We spoke about that a lot at the Savoy event that we did a few weeks ago, when people make mistakes as well on records, and then they cross them out and then they write the actual thing they should have put, but you can still see the mistake. And that mistake is actually very telling, because chances, I mean, what normally happens, especially when we're looking at the 1921 census, for example, they're filling it out wrong. They're not reading the instructions. So they put what they think they should put, and then they actually go and read the instructions, and then they cross it out, or the enumerator does it for them. So you actually get more detail than you bargained for. And I love it. I love it. Thank you very much, Rita. Okay, what have we got here? Gillian says, when I was starting to use Findmypast, I was looking for my mum's side of the family. Dad's side is here in Scotland. Maternal grandmother was Wrexham. Oh, I've got Wrexham relatives too. My paternal grandfather actually was born in Wrexham, and that's the Joneses. My Joneses are all from there for about 100 years. That's where they were. They were miners. Maternal grandmother was Wrexham, and her mother's side Williams. Her dad's side was over from the border in Oswestry, Shropshire. What I've got and know now is unbelievable. This is the thing, like, you just keep opening doors, don't you? And every time you open that door, that image just gets a little bit brighter, and you've just got more. You've just got more. This is why we say family history is so addictive, because you always want a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. It's just, yes. Okay. Lovely. Okay, I'm clicking through just any more questions of the week. Sue says, finding the Dublin North Workhouse records for my grandmother and great-grandmother. Yeah, I imagine that must have been a tricky find as well, to know that because these are close relatives, your grandmother and your great-grandmother, that they were in a workhouse, and they must have fallen on hard times. But I hope they were. You know what I'm trying to say. I hope all worked out for the best. That sounds very naive, but it's a genuine, I hope it worked out for the best. Marilyn says, I found my 6-year-old grandfather charged and in court for placing a board on the railroad tracks in Kidderminster. He was with 2 7-year-olds when 3 of them committed the crime. The judge allowed them to go home in the custody of their parents, a criminal at the age of 6. Wow. I think criminal's too strong a word. I think that the justice system has evolved so much since then. But if that hadn't happened, you wouldn't have this story. You wouldn't have this record of this little fragment of your 6-year-old grandfather. I think in one sense, I think it's horrific that a child would be taken to court for this. But on the other hand, it happened, and you now have that record. You now have that little piece of him. Yeah, that's a really good one as well. Rosie says, in 2006, realizing with help from those more experienced that my great-grandfather's wife Annie on the 1891 census was not the same Annie that he was married to on the 1881 census, and that my grandfather had siblings I'd never heard of. I think I am guilty of this myself. I sometimes think that people only get married once, and they don't. There are, people get divorced, and spouses unfortunately die, and people remarry. And I sometimes forget that, when an ancestor disappears or a name changes. And this is one of the things I always try and make myself remember this. Could they have remarried? And I think that's an important thing for all of us to remember. It's a really good little research technique. Just take a step back, stop trying to bash through a brick wall and go, actually, could they have got married again? Or could they have been married previously as well? It goes both ways. Heather says, the newspapers on Findmypast have been invaluable to me in confirming my family relationships, adding social and personal details for quite a few individuals, descriptive obituaries and wedding articles, court appearances, convictions, transportation, and much more. It's been wonderful. I'm going to share that with the newspaper team, because I think that is a wonderful testimonial for our newspapers and the incredible work that is done to digitize all of these. We digitize them at the newspapers in partnership with the British Library. We love the British Library. I think they're fantastic. And we have a fantastic scanning team at Boston Spa, and they're just wonderful. Like, the amount of things they are scanning and the speed in which they are scanning at the moment. So they do all the scanning, and then what happens is those high-res images, they go to our team in Dundee, and then they are prepared to come onto the website and be searchable via optical character recognition. It's just wonderful. I think newspapers are fantastic. I don't think Rose is even listening today, but I'm picking up newspapers for you. Oh, there's so many here. I have 2 other things I want to talk about, but these are just too good. Susan says, I can't remember that far back. It was still 1837 online. It's changed a few times since then. Yes, I thought it might be a little bit of an ask for going, because if you've been with us for quite a long time, it might be difficult to remember the first few discoveries you made, which is totally understandable. Yes. there's so many. So many lovely questions and so many lovely stories. Oh, fantastic. I'm going to have to move on, I'm afraid. I'm just going to read Jessie's. We'll just read Jessie's as the last one, shall we? Mine is probably a bit different because my first few weeks at Findmypast was my few weeks working. But my first ever research thing was for Alex. We miss him, we do. And he asked me to scour the archives for reports of the social climate in Wales in the 1920s. Fair to say, it wasn't too happy, but he told me exactly what he needed. It was exactly what he needed, and I felt so proud. Jessie, your research skills are incredible. Jessie has actually been working for us for about a year now. Can you believe that? Absolutely amazing. We love you, Jessie. We should do more. You should do more live sessions. Everybody loved the Dry March one. Pick another topic. You do another one. Okay, well, I'm going to have to move on, I'm afraid, because otherwise I'm never going to get through everything today that I want to get through. So let me get rid of the question of the week banner, and we are going to do a little bit of a tutorial. I thought today would be a really good time to have a little bit of a refresher on how to search the 1921 census, because there's a few different ways you can search it. And yes, I'm sure for some of you, I will be teaching you how to suck eggs, but if I can share this with at least one person, they will then learn something and find it useful and be able to apply it to their research and find ancestors and stories much quicker, I will be very happy. Please continue to share like your top tips for searching the 1921 census as well. I always love to hear these. So what we'll do is we will hop into this and we will get started. Okay, so there are actually, let me just make sure I've got the right window open. There we go. Okay, so there are actually 3 different ways to search the 1921 census. So I'm going to touch on each of them briefly, and then what we will do is, in fact, I'm just going to make that window. Yeah, that'll do. So yeah, we're just going to have a little look at this, and what we'll do first is we will go to the 1921 census landing page. So consider this as a sort of a basic search. So you can add in a first name, last name, birth year, and a location. So this is particularly good if you know pretty much exactly what you're looking for, and it's a good place to start because this search almost convinces you to be broad in your search criteria. Because on Findmypast, I think the way our search is set up is that if you add in too much detail, you may get 0 results. So our advice is always to go in broad and then slowly add in more information if you need to narrow down your criteria. And that way you're not going to miss anything. So what we'll do is we'll just give this a go. It's nice and simple. But before we go on, be sure to scroll down on our pages. Like we actually spend, well, people like Niall and Jessie and my colleague Angie as well, who is our SEO lead. They spend a lot of time designing these pages and making sure that they're filled with rich, helpful content for you. So be sure to scroll down on any page you see like this. There's also links to blog articles. There's some frequently asked questions here. So if you've got a question about the 1921 census, it probably will be on this page. Just a little tip for you all there. So what we'll do is we'll search for, let's go for one of my great grandparents. So we'll go Robert Thomas Jones, and he was born 1876. Now you actually look at that and you think that's actually a really broad, that's a really broad search term, but we'll just give it a go and we'll see how we get on. Okay, and then that brings you to the results page. You can always, as with other record searches on Findmypast, you can tweak your search here, which is quite handy. But as you can see here, there's already one here that I've looked at. This is, in fact, him. I know he was in and around Wrexham. This was the chap I was talking about earlier. This is my great-grandfather. He was a miner. So we'll just go and have a look at this, and all we do is we click onto the transcript button and we can have a look at that first. And in fact, you know, when I first opened this, when I first saw this record, I immediately knew it was him because there were other things I could spot that was like, yeah, that's absolutely right. So the address, for example, I've seen that address, I think, on the 1911 census for him. His occupation, the fact that he was employed near Gresford, near Wrexham, his wife, Nellie. This is my great-grandmother. This is my grandfather here, Cecil Dennis Jones, and his sisters and his brother. So there's a more detailed transcript if you scroll down. This is all the information that we have drawn out from the scans and uploaded, and this is pretty much all the information you can. This is a lot of this you can search by, actually. The fact that it's got like 5 minor dependents as well. And then if you scroll down as well, we've actually added some rich content here to help you understand your ancestors' life in 1921 a little bit more. So where possible, we pull out a definition of their occupation. If anybody is working for the same employer, you can actually pull those out. You can see how many other people had his occupation as well in the nearby area. We've got other records featuring that name. I absolutely love this facility. So we could click through that and we could look at him on the 1911 census. There's also a map as well. We can drag this around. We can zoom in and out. We can change it a little bit. So that's what it looks like today. And if we zoom out a little bit, yeah, so it's just north of Wrexham. I actually used to work around here. And that was when I didn't know that he was from Wrexham. So yeah, fantastic. And then there's also there are some little tidbits from our newspapers as well that you can explore. And there's also even more rich content here about what society looked like in 1921, but you can also specify it for Wrexham too. Isn't that cool? So yeah, so that's the transcript. I'm probably telling all of you something you already know here, but if there's an original image, make sure that you view it, because you can just get so much more detail here. So I'll just go through the image quickly and just the sort of things that you can actually do with it. So we'll zoom in a little bit first of all. What's really interesting here, and this is why checking the original on things like this is so important. Stanley Wilson Jones, his parents are listed as both alive, just like for his siblings. But I know that Nellie was not Stanley's mother. I know that his mother had died previously. So it's very interesting that Robert has added this as both of Stanley's parents being alive. It's very possible that by this point, Nellie was Stanley's mother, because I think the family story goes that Stanley was baptized over his mother's coffin. And I don't know how true that is. It's just in some notes I had from my aunt. So she died, I can't remember, I think her name is Arabella. I think she died not long after giving birth to Stanley. The other thing that I thought was very interesting on this record as well is that it says that he was a coal miner for the Gresford company near Wrexham, and it says that he was working at home. I mean, who's a miner at home? I think he was actually out of work at this point. It's not unusual. A lot of miners that I've come across in the 1921 census are indeed out of work. And I just think he maybe didn't have the heart to write that down, that he was out of work, because he is, as you can see, he's the sole breadwinner and all of his children are under 10. Look, his signature as well. A couple of other things on the image then. So if you're looking for the address page, what you want to do is you want to click this little button here on the right hand side, and that will bring you to the address page. There it is. It's not on the census form itself. It's actually on the other side. So you need to just go to the next page to see it. And then be sure to open up the film strip as well, because you can browse through the thumbnails here if you wanted to. And then you've also got the extra materials. So you've got everything that is linked to this one household is in here. So the original, the cover, the address, maps, and also the plans of division as well. You can, if you wanted to rotate the image, you can also change like things like the brightness and the contrast on it. Oh, that's far too bright. I don't like that. If you need a copyright statement, it's just here. And if for some reason you forget which record set you're looking at, that's there too. Okay, cool. So that is that. I am vastly running out of time. Okay, so the next way you can search, you can go to search and then you can click 1921 census up here, or you can find this through the all record sets page. Now, this is the more advanced search for the 1921 census. This has so much more. This has so many more fields that you can search by. And this is what you start adding when you need to narrow down your search, when you've got too many results in essence. So a couple of the things I want to highlight here are the birthplace. So for the birthplace, this is not standardized. It's just transcribed how it was written by your ancestor or by the person that wrote the form for them. So, you know, for example, your ancestor could actually have been born in Great Torrington, but somebody's written down Torrington. Okay, so be sure to use your wildcards there. So if you're not sure, you can use your wildcard like this and put Torrington down. So that's still going to pull out Torrington, but it's also going to pull out the results for any ones that, you know, have Great before it, for example. Okay, so that's that one. The other ones I think are really, really key are the occupation fields. Again, use your wildcards here, because if your ancestor was a miner, it might be that it was written down as a hewer, for example, or a wagoner below, or a coal miner or a lead miner. So again, you could do that, and that will pull out all results for occupations that have miner in them. Okay. The employer as well. I mean, chances are at this point you may not even know who the employer was. Again, this isn't standardized. This is just written how it was written on the form. That's how it's transcribed even. So again, wildcards. I'm just pulling out all the ones you need to be using wildcards for, really. This is a really good one for Welsh language speakers. So you can add those in there, but there's also other languages that you can add in. Now, if you know that you want to search a whole book, for example, you can actually add the piece number in here. You can browse by piece number as well if you wanted to, but you can start typing it and it does start to fill out. It starts to pre-fill. This is my favorite field, I think. This is the occupational keyword field. This is a real catch-all. So you can use this to try and track down a particular address, a particular house, a particular occupation, a particular employer. There's loads of stuff that you can use this for. And again, make use of the wildcards. This is probably my second favorite field. This is the other household member's name. So this is really handy if, say I had 300 Robert Thomas Joneses and I had no idea which one, and I wanted to, rather than go through all of them, I just wanted to make that process a little bit quicker. If I then added Nellie in, for example, that would bring my result count down, and I would have much fewer to go through. So what we'll do is we'll try another search. We will do another great grandparent of mine. We will go for Charles Dobbs. If I can type properly. I can't type under pressure. I actually can't remember his birth year off the top of my head without checking the tree. So I'm going to leave that blank. But what I'm going to do is I am going to add in my nana. I think, oh, I've got a fly around me. Okay, so that actually comes up with 15 results. So that's much better. And actually, this is exactly the right one I'm looking for, because I know he was born in Yorkshire and I know they were living in Lancashire. As you can see, I've already viewed the record. And that's it just there. Wonderful. Okay, so the last thing I want to touch on for searching, actually, I did just want to go back and just draw your attention to something else. When you come to this page, so the advanced search page for the 1921 census, again, a lot of time and effort and consideration has gone into making this page as useful for you as humanly possible. So what you can do here is there are loads of useful links and resources. You've got the official reports, you've got the schedule codes, occupation codes, you've got things like what institutions and prisons are included, what armed forces institutions are covered, for example. And then what we've also done, we've added some maps here. So our colleague Stephen Brigden has actually mapped some interesting figures from the census and put them into some Google Maps for you. All you have to do is click on some of these and you can see where they are in 1921. It's really cool. We've even got a pets one. Okay, I mean, why wouldn't you want to go look at that? And again, there's loads and loads of search guidance here. Yeah, I recommend taking a look at that if you're struggling with the 1921 census, you need a bit of extra guidance. This is here for you. Right, yes, so address search. So you can access address search by going 1921 addresses like this. This is pre-filled 1921 census. You can change it to a different census year, or you can add all censuses. There are some search tips here. Again, please give these a read. They're here to help you. Other ways to find addresses. And my biggest tip here is, again, with the wildcard, because streets are not always recorded how you expect. Because sometimes you might be looking for something like, I don't know, South Street, and it's recorded not as South Street, but as South ST. So tick the spelling variants, and yeah, just have a play with it, really. It's really cool if you want to try and see who was in your house in 1921, or if you don't live in a house that's old, maybe your friend's house, or your mother's house, or your grandma's house, or the house you visited once when you were a child or something. I don't know. It's just a really good way to pass the time. I love house history, and this is such a cool tool that enables you to do it as well. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to cover. I'm just going to hop into the comments quickly, because I'm going to try and see if I can squeeze in my last thing I wanted to touch on today. Andrew says, I'm surprised at how many folk in 1921 were out of work. It shows my mum's grandfather, in a household of 13. Nobody was working. Her mum had moved out. It's really striking, isn't it? I would say 1 in 3 1921 census records that I look at, somebody's out of work. So as you've probably noticed, I come from a reasonably working class background, and I come from mining stock, and a lot of them were out of work, a lot. And I think, Jessie, you would probably say the same, coming from Gateshead as well. If you looked at your family on the 1921 census, which I'm sure you have, it's quite hard to read, actually. There was some other family members of mine I found in 1921, and I think there were lots of various different family members living in the one household, including like my 2 times great-grandfather's sister, for example, and not a single person in the household was working. There were about 10 people living there, nobody was working. And then I've come across, when I've been doing research into brands, so whether it's like Cadbury or all of these brands, the heritage brands in the UK, I've come across sort of young women who were 18 to 22, and they are the ones bringing in the dollar or the sterling. They're the ones bringing in the money in 1921. Their minor brothers and fathers are not working, and them working at the factories or working for these sorts of brands and companies, they're the ones that are bringing in the money. They're the ones that are supporting the families. And it's so striking to see that. Okay, I'm just scrolling through, because obviously I have been just talking at you about the 1921 census, so I've just missed all of these comments. Does anyone get those wow moments when you suddenly discover that a place you visited, perhaps on holiday or for work, and found yourself drawn to, suddenly turns out to be the home of your ancestors? This happened to me. So I moved to Scotland with my now husband about 7 years ago, and we moved because he was starting a PhD in St Andrews, and he's obviously now finished it and everything, but he thought he had a family connection to Scotland. I was like, no Scotland, no Scottish for me. Started working at Findmypast, did a DNA test, did some research. Yep, I've got Scottish roots. It's very, very strange, I will admit, when you have been somewhere and you suddenly realise that you have some sort of connection there. It came out in the research that we did for Jenny Bond, actually, because she lives in Devon. She hasn't always lived in Devon. She moved to Devon about 20 or 30 years ago. And one of her, I think, grandmothers or great-grandmothers was born in Devon. And she never knew that. And, she settled there somehow. Yeah, it is a spine tingle moment, actually. It could do, Maz. That is a really good point. It's possible that my great grandfather filled it out in the wrong field. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Gosh, so many good comments. Do you know what? I am not going to have time to do my last segment for today because your discoveries have utterly taken over my mind today. So what I think we will do is we'll park what I was going to talk about next for next time, and I think it'll be more appropriate in November anyway, because it is sort of remembrance related. So I was going to look at the mentioned in dispatches records, but we'll look at those another time, I think, because I don't want to cram too much into today. But I just want to say, as always, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your amazing stories with us, because this is my bread and butter, okay? This is what absolutely keeps me going, and I, yeah, just really like it. Yeah, can you come back to next week, Andrew? Exactly. I love also seeing handwriting on census forms, Christine. Actually, there was, I don't know if I showed you this. Let me just share my screen again, because I think I've shown you guys this before, but I really love this. So let me just find it again for you, because this was a really good find for me. Like, I was really pleased with this. Let me just find it again. This was the record I had open a moment ago. I'll finish off with this. This is what I mean when I say that finding things that aren't filled out correctly on census forms can sometimes be really, really beautiful. Look at the signature. So my great grandmother filled this in, and then my great grandfather seemed that he had to sign it as well. So I've got both of their signatures sitting next to each other. And I sort of love that, because I never knew these two people. I never knew them. My father was one of four. He was the youngest of four. I never met my paternal grandfather. He died in 1960, for goodness sake. And my paternal grandmother died when I was about 6. So I don't really know this side of the family very much. And seeing this here in black and white is really special for me. But it's why we do what we do, right? We yearn to have that connection to people we never met, and it's why it's so important. Right, next week. So Jen is going to be hosting next week. It was supposed to be me, and like Jen was supposed to be today, and we ended up switching. So you've got Jen next week, and also really exciting, you are going to meet a new member of the Findmypast team, Charlotte Ward. She is, I can't remember her exact job title. I think she's like a digitization manager or something like that. Rose will correct me. But she is an expert in naval history. So if you have naval ancestors and you need a little bit of help, this is going to be the person that you're going to want to ask. So she's coming on next week to briefly talk about the Battle of Trafalgar anniversary. But then she's going to be doing a full-on session in November to help you trace your naval ancestors. So think about your questions now. Think about what you're going to want to ask Charlotte. She's absolutely lovely. We're so pleased to have her with us. Yes, in fact, yeah, Jessie's absolutely right. She's the one that digs out all of these really cool stories from the weekly records every week at the moment. She goes away and she finds these stories. So all props to her. Yes. Digitization operations manager. Thank you, Rose. I knew you would correct me. Yes, that's her job title. Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend. Look after yourselves, treat yourselves a little bit, and do a little bit of family history. I will see you next time.